Hey everyone, my name is Anna Rouse and this is my X-Treme Makeover presentation for NU 713, Organizational and Systems Leadership for the Advanced Practice Nurse. This is the table of contents for my presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to reflect on a time where there was a miscommunication in my nursing career, identify how and why it occurred, and relate my experiences to the concepts discussed in this module. I will then explain what changes I would make to change the outcome of my story. Listed on the lower half of this slide are my learning outcomes for this assignment. The goal of my presentation is to find ways to transform the environment that I currently nurse in to be more safe and effective in its practice using concepts discussed in this module. I will now tell my story. One morning I received a report on a patient that had come from an outside facility with a severe case of Stevens-Johnson syndrome. The patient had arrived dirty with open wounds and without accurate vital signs due to his condition. Severe Stevens-Johnson syndrome patients develop burn-like wounds, and this patient had them over 70% of his body surface. His syndrome had progressed to a life-threatening condition called TENS, toxic epidermal necrolysis. The patient should have been admitted to the burn unit at my facility, but there were no available beds, and so my floor took him, even though we had no burn experience. This patient weighed over 400 pounds, had no family at bedside, and was unable to talk. It was evident he was in pain due to facial expressions and noises he was making. Because of his lack of intact skin, we could not apply EKG pads. We had the blood pressure cuff on his left calf and the oxygen saturation monitor on his right toenail. Neither of these sites are ideal for accurate vital sign readings. The vitals that we were getting were growing increasingly critical. There were no new orders in the chart from my facility, no providers present, and no way of getting in touch with one. There's a gap in provider coverage on our unit between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. My patient was getting more and more unstable, and I had no one to contact despite all efforts. An hour into my shift, a provider came to bedside, but also stated he had little knowledge of burn wounds and at this severity. We requested help from the trauma burn unit at my facility, but they had no one to send due to being understaffed. We did the best we could for this patient. We tried to treat his illness, control his pain, and inform his family the best that we could. After meeting his family, I learned more about his story. The patient had a recent compound fracture and contracted an infection. He was prescribed IV antibiotics to be given at home. The patient developed a rash, cough, fever, and joint pain 3 days after his initial dose of antibiotics. After calling the doctor, he was told to take Benadryl and Tylenol, but the doctor did not recommend that he come in and be seen. The patient did not choose to go to the emergency room until he had open wounds and a consistent fever of over 102. He went to an outside facility where he was triaged as a mild case of Stevens-Johnson syndrome and put on a med-surg floor for treatment. His condition was very underestimated. When we received the patient, it was evident to the family and our staff that he had not received adequate care at the other facility and was in a critical state of health now. After the patient passed away at our facility, the pharmacy staff reported our unit nursing staff for a severe medication error. They stated that the patient didn't truly weigh 439 pounds. In truth, the patient was not weighed when they arrived. This is an issue, and the patient should have been weighed upon initial assessment, but there was more to the situation. The patient came very unstable and in a bariatric bed that our staff was not trained to use. There was no way to weigh him without putting him in a more unstable position. Therefore, the nurse before me had documented the weight given to her in the previous report that she had received from the outside facility, which was 439 pounds. Looking back, our staff is pretty sure it was accurate. Even if the patient weighed less, it took every bit of the weight-based vasopressors we administered to keep the patient alive as long as we did. There were so many breakdowns of communication and issues that went into this stressful and tragic scenario. There was a lot of conversation in our unit break room among nurses who knew about this patient and the issues that I experienced. The topics were that we had a faulty report from facility to facility. There was a lack of patient education initially. There was a failure to investigate patient conditions when the patient was not asked to come in for treatment. There was a misdiagnosis of patient complications when the patient was not diagnosed with Stevens-Johnson syndrome. An inaccurate initial patient assessment when they arrived to our facility, and insufficient interdisciplinary communication due to the lack of coverage on our unit. I and the other nurses had felt unprepared due to the faulty report. We felt that the patient did not receive the care they should have from the other facility and that there was no way to hold that facility accountable. We felt overwhelmed because none of us had experience with burn patients, unsupported due to having no provider present for that period of time, and not equipped to handle this patient due to the lack of resources. After we learned that pharmacy had reported our staff, there were even hostile feelings between the two specialties. This left our staff with a negative culture, feeling overwhelmed, unprepared, and ultimately unsupported. Organization as conversation is a concept that uses complex relational perspective to analyze both patterns of meaning and patterns of relation and what the two have to do with each other. According to Weberg, meaning is a vision, mission, and value behind an organization. And on this slide, you will find the mission statement given by my facility. It talks about serving students, patients, and community well and striving to give excellent care with the newest research and technology. This mission was not reflected in my story. My facility's core values are listed on this slide. As the nurses had made clear in the break room conversations, they did not feel that respect, collaboration, or accountability were present in this scenario. The situation had in many ways contraindicated the claims made by my organization, and this had a very negative effect on staff attitudes. Eric Vandeloo, a professor of organizational behavior, said, "Listening is a basic human activity and one of the most important determining factors for the quality of interpersonal and professional relationships. To study patterns of relating within your organization, you would assess how people react with each other. Patterns of relating define culture. They may be habits and rituals that play into the patterns of relating within an organization. Patterns of relating may reveal certain power dynamics that are present in an organization. Patterns can be found in the way people talk and listen to each other. You can assess how the staff feels about your organization not only by what they say, but how they say it. They may use a certain tone or gestures when speaking about a subject that will tell you more about how they feel than just what they are saying with their words." A relational leader is not a traditional leader. They are a leader who is present with their group and involved in conversations. Relational leaders use relationships and conversations to lead. Relational leaders encourage horizontal decision-making, sharing, networking, and other concepts that give staff the opportunity to have a voice in their organizations. They use conversations to positively affect their staff. Relational leadership can benefit an organization in many ways. It can promote a culture that emphasizes collaboration and empowerment. It promotes engagement and efficacy in relationships, leaving staff feeling supported. Relational leadership also encourages continuous learning and connectivity, benefiting all staff. It has the ability to increase interdisciplinary communication and cultivate a culture of accountability and respect by leaders being inclusive and approachable with their staff. Meaning is a social construction that arises from gesture-response interactions between people. Meaning considers gestures and emotions to be symbols that indicate a person's feelings. This human interaction brings people together in their actions to accomplish tasks successfully. Assessing patterns of meaning would be to determine how staff relates to each other by looking at their gestures and responses in conversations. Schneider, an author that focuses on leadership and psychological concepts, states, "Our actions are based on meaning. Therefore, you can change the course of one's actions by modifying the meaning behind them." Our organization states that they value excellence, collaboration, and accountability. After putting myself in the role of a relational leader and analyzing the conversations had among the staff in their speech, gestures, and responses, I find that the values do not hold true in this scenario. The conversations that are ordinarily had on our unit, in the break room, or over lunch are the conversations that will help leaders to understand the ideology of staff and patterns of power found within an organization. Conversation is a vital asset to the relational leader. It's essential to consider talking, listening, and mindfulness when participating in conversations. The relational leader can use conversation to move their organization forward, but only if they use these skills. Relational leaders genuinely relate to their staff. Therefore, they will implement skills like speaking in an inclusive way, paying attention to gestures they use to respond with, and being mindful of all those around them when participating in a conversation. Innovation is a form of outside-of-the-box thinking that should be encouraged among staff by leaders. Leaders themselves can be innovative thinkers and inspire their followers to do so as well. Significant issues can be solved through innovative ideas. Innovation has a cutting edge and continually moves organizations forward. Misunderstandings in the workplace spark innovation. When a problem occurs, staff and leaders can creatively brainstorm ways to fix this problem. The innovative leaders use both and thinking. The both concepts acknowledge the need for and value of multiple perspectives in one situation. The and concept recognizes a need for future ideas and conversations. Innovative leaders can truly involve their staff in leadership decisions by valuing perspective and promoting ideas. I think I would use transformational leadership to move my unit forward and resolve problems such as the one I explained in this presentation. The transformational leader sets a clear vision and manages boundaries. The transformational leader uses and promotes innovation. They empower staff and are consistently seeking ways to bring about positive change. I will now explain how I would change the narrative of my story using the concepts discussed previously in my presentation and listed on this slide. The following slides reiterate what concepts I would use to formulate a plan to benefit and rewrite my story. I have listed several small tasks on the next two slides. Honesty and gestures are two things a relational leader should look for to find true meaning in a discussion. Some key areas that need to be focused on would be collaboration, relationships, accountability, and support for my staff. The process I have laid out would ensure that staff are involved, change will occur, and it will create a more positive culture. Some key areas that need to be focused on would be collaboration and relationships and accountability. The following few slides will lay out what changes I would make and how they would affect my story using the newly learned concepts. First, I would establish an accountability process when receiving reports on patients transferring from my floor from an outside hospital. I would encourage innovative thinking and staff involvement on how best to create this accountability process. This would prevent the future effect of faulty report, like in my scenario. Second, I would ask the staff for involvement to help formulate a clear definition of what specialties we can and cannot accept on our unit. This would incorporate a horizontal decision-making process as a relational leader. While we cannot change the fact that the patient in the scenario was not properly educated, I would also encourage our staff to focus on patient education and ensure it is done adequately every time on our unit. Next, I would ask staff and listen to the conversation to show me what education they require. For example, we may need further training on bariatric beds or how to correctly weigh unstable patients. I would then use innovative thinking to create educational opportunities that were helpful and convenient to my staff. I may also request that staff members from our facility and other units, such as the burn unit, make a quick educational video as a resource in case we come across this patient population again. This would build resources for our unit to help them continue to learn and better care for patients. I would also collect data from staff assessing the numbers of times during 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. windows that they cannot get in touch with a provider. I would bring these statistics to a hospital administration and make a case for why this is an unsafe condition for my staff and our patients. Lastly, I would hold an open floor meeting once every 2 weeks where my employees can openly voice concerns like I had in my scenario. Though I would have an open door policy at all times, this meeting would be an allotted time where employees can bring up issues, explain concerns, and give their ideas on how we can better the unit. I would encourage innovative thinking and change. This would be a great example of how transformational and relational leaders should lead. Here is my extreme makeover and how my story would go after implementing my changes. I received a report on a patient that came from an outside hospital. The patient was critical and needed many resources we did not have on our unit. We were prepared due to the sufficient report from the patient's previous facility and knew that this would be a difficult assignment. I paged the provider and got a quick response. After speaking with the provider, I started medications to help our situation, was educated by the burn team at my facility, and I was given the supplies to provide adequate care. The initial assessment of the patient was correct and thorough, so all medications and data were properly administered up until this point. Though it was not my typical patient, I was able to effectively care for him throughout my shift due to the education and resources from the interdisciplinary collaboration. While still critically ill, the patient was made comfortable and stable enough for the family to spend some time with him. Here is a list of my references. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.